How did you manage the Norwood household with 5 children?
Well, I broke up the day with first a breakfast, making the beds, dressing the children, and getting the buggy ready, comfortable for the baby with the little pillow and a little blanket. And I dressed the toddler and the other toddler, and the 2 toddlers held onto the stroller and the baby in the buggy. And off we went. And we visit all down the street, Norwood to West Utica. We'd say hello to everybody. Hello, hello. And we walk and we go past Netta's Cleaners. I'd go in with the dry cleaner, pants and clothes and uniforms. The uniforms were cleaned by Netta. Yes, it was before I would wash them. They were dry cleaned. And then from the dry cleaner, we go to the flower shop, and there was a big fat cat in the window. And we would knock at the window and talk to the cat in the window. And then down Elmwood Avenue, we'd have the gift shop and lots of things to look at, and everybody loved the baby. Oh, let me see, is it a boy or a girl? And they were all girls, all dressed from Gemma Tat Shop. And from that shop, we'd go to the butcher. Oh, yes, it was the butcher. We'd pick out the meat, we'd order the groceries, and they would deliver. I didn't even have to carry them home. These groceries were delivered.
And when did Grandma Winnie move upstairs?
Oh, the old couple was up there. They were from England. They had a little accent to Mr. and Mrs. Oliver.
Mm-hmm.
And they were very nice, quiet people. And for some reason, I don't remember, they decided they were going to move. Of course, they told me the reason, and they moved. And that's when I asked Mother if she'd like to move upstairs with Paula.
Mm-hmm.
And she said yes. Actually, Paula wasn't upstairs at all. She had an apartment with Uncle Bob down the street. So Mother moved upstairs, and she was still working at the time. So she'd go to work, 7:30, and then she'd come home at 4:30. Soon as Mother came home, upstairs went Joan and Susan, and they'd be with Grandma Winnie, and she'd be cooking and cleaning, and I'd be downstairs with my baby, Teresa. And soon Annette came, and then I had baby Annette, Teresa and Annette, and then I had Jimmy in that house. It was wonderful in Norwood, but you had to move your car on the side of the street. It was park on this side on Tuesday and Wednesday, park on this side Wednesday and Friday. And the bus was at the corner if we needed bus to go downtown. I taught Joan and Susan how to go downtown. They were only like 12 years old, and off they went with their money for the bus. It was 10 or 15 cents, and they'd go downtown.
How did you stay connected with your friends while raising a large family?
It was phone calls. I'd call them up and say, hello. Eddie English Klein. And then I had Caroline Livongo.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Caroline.
She was a good friend.
Yeah.
She still is.
Yeah, Caroline.
Mm.
With Joey. And Joey and Giorgio. I'd have Joey over here, and he'd play in the basement with Giorgio.
Cute.
Mm-hmm. Or they'd go outside with the bow and arrow. That was dangerous. A bow and arrow.
Oh.
And let's see. Oh, my friend on West River. She had 2 daughters, and the father was Frank Greco, and she was Julie. Julie Greco was a friend.
She was.
And we went to swimming once a week at the Y.
Oh.
She had her daughter, and I had mine, Mary Catherine.
Oh. And Barbara Marlin was a good friend of yours here.
Oh, yeah, Barbara Marlin. She came over once a week. Well, Dad and I went to dinner or did something, shopping, maybe. We were shopping for Christmas. Barbara would Barbara Marlin. Oh yeah, we had the clothing shop for the children, Gemma Tat Shop.
Yeah.
I visit them every day, and I'd buy something for my baby, Jimmy or Annette. Jimmy and Annette. I bought their clothes there. And it was Helen. I'd call her Aunt Helen.
Oh, yeah, that's
and
right.
And it was Sandy. It was Sandy's Aunt Helen, but everybody called her Aunt Helen because Sandy said Aunt Helen, Aunt Helen. Anyway.
And on the street on Norwood, who were your friends over on your neighbors? Did you have
Oh yeah, Marie.
How about some birthday memories of your children?
Well, two of them flash real quick is, of course, the first birthday that we invited everybody, even Carol and Pat McGaverill, and we had the first birthday, for Joan. And it was on Norwood Avenue, and it was, that's all I remember is taking the photo. I remember organizing the photo for the birthday, and it's vivid in my mind is the birthday with Carl and Pat and Buster Nolan, Grandma, Mom Pauline, and my mom, and Uncle Richie and Chucky, and Grandma Pinto and Grandpa Pinto. And that's the first one that I remember vividly. And then I remember vividly is with Jim Montanari here for one of the birthdays. And that was exciting. I don't know exactly, must have been James' birthday. And I always called him Jimmy. My name is James, Mother. And that was the two birthdays that come to mind. And it was in the dining room. Before we expanded, it was very small. And we had Jim Montanari for dinner, and then we had the cake with grandma's, and lots of cake, and lots of food, and potato chips, and we had the 16th party for Mary Catherine. That was the one with Mary Catherine and her friends in the basement, decorating and fun. It was around Halloween, and so I think we had costumes.
Which family members played a role in your children's lives?
All the family members played a role in their lives, at different times of their lives, in different ways. Uncle Chucky was looking for some stability in his life, and he latched onto his nieces and nephews. He showed a simpler side of life. The simpler side of life was he was content. My brother Chucky was content. He didn't need much. He had a car and he had four wheels. It was okay with him. Not many people could reach that level of simplicity where you find contentment in your everydayness. Uncle Chucky found contentment in everydayness. And my brother Richard, he was short-lived, 38, but he had an influence. Richard brought high ideals in. He had to become my mother's confidant and older child at home yet. So he provided a stability for my mom at a time when she needed it more. And his accomplishments were, and where he went and what he became, were satisfying to her to a point that he was able to accomplish that without my father being around. My family never lacked that, and wanting to embrace their nieces and nephews.
Discuss moving to Grand Island and building 3109 3rd Avenue.
I went out and we dig in a pool for Mr. Brennan's Menswear, and his son, son-in-law Bob Goulding, I had to go down the street looking for some place to dump the fill. So I came down 3rd Avenue, and Uncle Joe was tending the garden where the house is here now. And so he took some fill because it was an old barn. So I brought the fill down, got to talking with him, and we made friendship. The lot was not buildable at the time. It was too small. We were able to grandfather it in. That's why we built the house so close to the street. We used the footprint of the old one, and we got a rebuilding permit from a very favorable building inspector, Harold Dorr. I had some plans drawn up by Don Darrell. He lived where Dennis Teagarden lived when he died, in that same block area. And we started building it after work. Carl Colangelo helped me, kept grade for me. He was my oiler during the day. I traded services for services here. The electrician was Tony, related to the Mikos. Frank Chiavetto was the plumber. I traded with him. He did the heating and plumbing. I did my own septic field. My father's best friend and cousin was Sam Onibani. He was in charge of this Erie County Health Department. So he facilitated that for me. Every night I was here, every night, every night. The brickwork was done by a retired bricklayer. He had 4 or 5 sons, small, and they mixed the mortar. He did the stonework in front of the kitchen. We built, and it took me 17 months from the day we sunk in the ground to the day we moved in. Grandpa Nola, spare time, he came over and did all the staining of the doors. The finished carpenter I got was a cousin to Joe Spano, my father's first cousin, and he brought along an apprentice carpenter, Frank Parancini, Rosella's father. He just came to this country, and he was a carpenter in the old country. Then Rosella's came to buy the house on Norwood, and then we became their tenants.
What year was it? 1972?
70 to 72. 70, I bought the lot where Susan's living. And we couldn't get it in there because there was a moratorium on building on the island because they didn't have any sewers. My dad helped me clear the lot. He died as we were clearing the lot. Then Joe and Marietta felt bad we couldn't build it. So they sold me this lot. Prior to selling me the lot, they owned the lot between Fontana and here. And it was a buildable lot in itself. However, Fontana's had some concerns that would be building too close with a lot of kids. So Marietta and Joe gave them 20 feet. So that became an unbuildable lot. So the Playhouse lot was unbuildable. So I had to build on this lot. 17 months later, we moved in. Jones House, I built in 1981. The bricks came from the brokerage house on Niagara and Amherst Street. I knocked it down. We were doing the 230 line. The beams came from, I knocked down they built the Kessler Center, Athletic Center at Canisius, and knocked a factory down in the back. Irving Parachute Company. And that's where they made parachutes for the First World War and the Second World War. And they had beams that wide, Douglas fir. And I saved all those and I built Grandma's house first, then I used the rest of them at Jones. Gutted Wonder Bread and Nabisco factories where they first started making green crackers. Those are the ones that are at 3080. The gates came out of New Cathedral. I knocked down the New Cathedral school, and that gate was prevent people from going between the church and the school. The doors came out of, and all the woodwork came out of the Kenmore Library. They knocked down the library, took all the doors and the trim work, and they're at 3080. The bricks for that came from downtown, various projects. One of them was the offices over on Elk Street. The cabinets are from the maple trees I knocked down at the Kenmore Library. We took the lumber, they were so big, the maple tree, and we took the lumber. On First Street, Jones House, I gutted the Squire Hall UB, black walnut paneling, all that paneling I took out and used it at Jones House. Street poles, I had sidewalks. I did sidewalk contract, North Tonawanda. Those are the cast iron posts that came out along the street. The letters streets came out of a piece of curb I took a piece of curb out of the largest tree in Buffalo. They wanted me to do it by hand on Franklin Street. And the sycamore tree, they want me to disturb it. We had the curb contract coming through here. I had to dig them by hand, so I saved the stone that came out of there, and I made Jones' address number. These trees have witnessed the city's centuries of growth. The windows in Jones' house came out of the St. Anthony house. St. Anthony's convent had a small chapel for the nuns. When I knocked that down, I took those windows. Katie has a plaster mold of a Roman sarcophagus from 2,000 years ago. Jim Montanari gave it to me, his best friend. We used to take art lessons from him. Was a curator at the museum. And so Jim, his friend, let him in at night, and they took rubber latex that Jim got from he was working for, and they were able to get this latex, and they formed it around a coffin, and they made a mold. It's got some minstrels, the funeral minstrels are depicted on it. I put one in Jones' house and one here. Then I have a Della Roba. When the Della Robas came in, and we're talking about from the early Renaissance, 1500s. He made one of a Della Roba, the Madonna. I got that. It was funny, they made a movie about the night at the museum. That actually occurred, and they used to take pictures.
Tell us about your first apartment on Busty.
We rented from Sam Losi and his wife, $18 a week, 422 Busty.
Did you live upper or lower?
Lower front. She was pregnant with Joan when we were in that house. My 19th birthday, she's wearing a pregnant spot.
Tell me about the story and you making Dad chicken.
I asked Grandma Pinto, how long do you cook it in the oven? And she told me that we don't want to dry it all up, we want it medium. So I cooked it for half hour and I took it out and I left it whole until Papa came home, George came home. I had the potatoes and the carrots and everything. But I went to break it open, it was pink. It was kind of bloody. George says, this is raw, this isn't cooked. And I says, well, I asked your mother, and she said 20 minutes, 30 minutes. She probably didn't hear me when I said it was a chicken. She probably thought it was beef. I didn't make myself clear and say, chicken. It's a chicken, it's a whole chicken.
Your mother had a surprise party when I got home from work. My grandmothers were there, my mother, and Grandma Pinto, Grandma Filipovich were there. She decorated the house with streamers and things. She had got a cake from Iroquois Bakery. She called my mother up and says, how does George like his meat? Well, he likes it medium rare. So my chicken was medium rare. Still had blood in it. I never ate chicken after that. No, I was going through an old gas station. There's filler pipes that are 3 foot long that go to the tank. And the guy with the gas truck goes, he takes the cap off and he throws the tank underground. right? When they knocked the station down, they didn't take the tanks out. After I dug the foundation for the store, I had to dig out to the street to get the electric into the building. So I had to be on a job on Monday, this is Friday. I was digging away. When I hit the pipe, instead of just feeling it, it snapped off and hit me in that face. I turned my face like this and went, yeah, it took my eye socket off.
Did your eye come out?
It dropped. I couldn't control it, it was just dangling, so I put it up like this. And I had a towel in my truck, which I always carry. I had it up there, and I drove over to it was a volunteer fire department. I rang the bell, and the siren went off, and they came, and they took me by ambulance. Who got in the car with me was a minister from the Unitarian Church. He didn't know if I was gonna make it. They said I was in bad shape. So he got in with me, and he says, "Do you mind if I pray with you?" No problem. "Are you in pain?" I said, "No, I have no pain," because it cut my nerve. Took me to South Buffalo Mercy.
How long were you in the hospital?
2 days.
And then you were on the job on Monday.
Yeah.
Tell me how it was learning to drive while you were pregnant with me in 1964.
Oh, I had a driving school. I called him up, and he came over.
How pregnant were you with me?
Mm-hmm. Well, you were due in September, and I was learning to drive like in March, April, May. So I was 4 or 5 months pregnant.
Did you have your own car at that time?
Yeah. Your father made sure there was a car there, and I really was always a walker, so I just moved it from one side of the street to the other. I hardly drove. Where I drove was a Sears. Now that's a memory
Okay.
of loading up Joan, Susan, and Teresa, in the back of the car, and I drove to Sears.
And there was no car seats back in the day, right?
Mm-mm. Everybody was loose. Just get in, just pile in.
Do you remember what kind of car it was?
Oh yeah, it was always a 4-door. And it might have been a station wagon, but that's I know we had a station wagon, but when I was learning, even George's father took me. He says, "I want to help you." I says, "I want to learn to drive," and so he took me a few times.
Oh, how nice.
He did. Oh, I loved it. Yeah, I got in the car and Papa Tony, I don't know what I called him, Dad, George's father, I called Dad, and I got in his car and I sat in his driver's seat, and he took me a couple times.
Did you pass on your first try for the road
Oh yeah,
test?
I passed. yeah, I passed on my first try.
What stands out from the economic changes of the 1970s?
We used to get I used to do all the meat shopping every week at the butcher. And it used to cost me $26-30 for all the meat for the week. My mother's very frugal about turning the lights off, because we couldn't afford, lights. My grandmother at the farm, she had all of the kerosene lamps. Never had electric. The kerosene lamps, used to go fill the 5-gallon can over at the general store. The electric bill used to come at $2 to $4 or something like that a month at the home. So what do we have to plug into? After we got a refrigerator on us after the war, when I was about 6 or 7, we got a refrigerator. When the bill would come due, there were times when she didn't have the money. So in the neighborhood, most of them were poor anyway. So the electric company would give you a notice, and then they would shut you off if not paid by this date. She'd go into her little coffee teacup. She kept the money, and we used to find bottles on the street, discarded bottles with 2 cents deposit. We'd give her the money, and when we get the stamped paid, $2.70. And another caution is you gotta bring it home and make sure you have it. In case they come to shut it off, you show them it's been, got the stamp on it. Okay. When you bought a car, was a radio. Sometimes $100 or $150 add-on to get a radio. My father always bought used cars. So to keep us kids pacified as we went every week to visit my grandmother in the country, keep us busy was to sing songs. We carried that tradition on when we got in the car. Barney Google with the googly eyes. Had a wife 3 times his size. She sued Barney for a divorce. Now he's living with his horse. I think it's called Indian Jack. Nothing could be finer than to be in Carolina in the morning. Yankee Doodle, riding on his pony, the feather in his head. They call that macaroni. I mean, my biggest accomplishment was doing things with the equipment that no one else could do. Because I was one of the first, I was on the first hydraulic hole in Buffalo. I was able to perfect what I was doing. And I was able to do things that, and they apply equipment that other people wouldn't think of. Like wrecking with backhoes. Everybody wrecked with crawler loaders before. No one ever wrecked with backhoe. I started wrecking, they come watching me. Watching take buildings down, how you can control with a backhoe you couldn't do with a loader. I still feel after 70 years, 68 years, I'm still at the top of my game as far as doing things with equipment. A never-ending learning process. One of my biggest accomplishments was taking down the Tift Street off-ramp of the Father Baker Bridge. And I proceeded to start knocking down alone, no one with me. The ramp, the bridge, chopped it all up. The concrete chopped all up. All the rebar was saved, put into scrap boxes, and at 5 o'clock I called for the lowboy to pick me up 1,000 feet. And my second biggest was taking down the various refineries, Ashland Chemical, U.S. Gypsum, one machine, one man. It was an ongoing process of accomplishments on a daily basis. Each day was an improvement. It was like breaking a record every day, doing something no one else ever did.
Well, to give you a quick, we'll kind of radiate out of this spot and give you an idea. Again, I started out as a gopher, and then I was on a tire truck for 9 years, besides working backhoes, so forth. So, using this as a radius point, I want to point out. I was telling Tom Duffy just a few minutes ago that. I said, like me looking down on my work from a different place. So, but basically, the lower part this was a bad part of town. So we worked on the knocking down of all the tenement houses and so forth here. And I dug the foundations in '72 here for this building. Then I did the Marine Atrium, is the big computer center there. And then we worked on the HSBC Arena. Then we gravitated over to the Naval Park, and we did most of the Naval Park, including bringing the Croker there. Penny and I were honored by the Secretary of the Navy to go on a nuclear submarine as a reward for
We were
working
on a submarine. We were.
Yeah, we were 6,000 feet down in the Atlantic
We were.
Trough. So I worked on the Skyway as one of my first. When I was only 16, I did all the electrical lines, and they had a median in there before. And so I placed all those foundations. Then in '76, I did the Skyway Loop. That's the one coming off of 190, the bridge, and it loops around. So then we went down to the waterfront, Lakefront Boulevard, and we did the development there with the housing. The first 26 apartment buildings were there for El Rondazio. So we did those there. Then moving over here, I did the Buffalo Evening News. So that starts right there across the street, the foundations and so forth. And moving on further, the FBI building. I knocked down number 1 Niagara Mohawk Station that was there. That was where they brought electric first to Buffalo. I knocked that down. I still have the head for it from the first cable. But we knocked that down, and we did the FBI Academy, the offices. And then right across the street on West Mohawk, I put up years ago Italian War Memorial for Italian soldiers that died. So that's on West Mohawk. Those are some. I did the jail, all the new jail, and the Main Place Mall. Obviously, we did that. Moving on, I did the M&T Bank building, and then starting at the Aud station, we moved up to Church Station, and then the Fillmore Station, Humboldt Park Station, Amherst
Oh
Street Station.
boy, that was a lot of hours.
Sullivan Station, Utica Station. So I worked on every one of those. I would knock the buildings down and to make room for the shaft that would go down and do the foundations for those. And then moving up on toward the medical quarter. Originally, I dug the original Children's Hospital 52 years ago, and then I had the privilege of digging the new Children's Hospital now, the Oshai. And then across the street, the GVI, knocking all those buildings down to work on the St. Jude Center, where they teach pastoral care. Father Monsignor Ed Ulashevsky, great guy there. And then right next door, I did the first Kevin House with Mrs. Naples. They purchased Kevin, and I knocked down the buildings, built a parking lot. So we did that. In between time, I did the station, the Elm Street Station. Did all the foundations, and I brought the line 5.2 miles from Gardenville to service the Elm Station. And then we went to, in 1980, we went to Huntley Plan, and we brought 8.4 miles for the rapid transit. All the Humboldt Parkway was lined with big elm trees, that big around. And so after they cut them down, I had to dig all the stumps out. There must have been thousands of them going all the way. Then I did the Main Street underpass, so just kind of moving on and on and on as it radiated out of Buffalo. So when I look down on this, it looks, I feel very much a part of the roots of Buffalo.
What financial lessons guided your family?
My lesson started when I was a youngster. We come from humble beginnings, didn't have much money. My mom would save in the teapot to pay the electric bill. My sister and I would walk up the end of the month, the electric bill in, and pay her $2 or $3, or else they would come immediately and shut the electric off if you didn't pay. I focus more on needs rather than wants. We come from a culture where if you had your needs, you didn't need. Your wants could be put off.
How did you balance work and family?
Well, according to your mother, I never balanced it. She was always home alone. But now and then, we went places, we did things. We went to the Uncle Guy's cottage, Crystal Beach, Disney World.
Do you have any favorite story of Crystal Beach? There was a ferry that went over, a boat to Crystal Beach. Where did the boat port?
The commercial slip downtown near where the Naval Park is.
What was it called? The Canadiana?
Canadiana.
How much did it cost?
25 cents round trip or 15 cents one way.
What was there to do at Crystal Beach?
Everything you did at Fantasy Island and more. Dancing, roller skating, arcades, roller coasters, cyclones, life in the dark, magic carpet, and the beach. The beach was white, and the ride going over was great. It was a big boat ride.
How long did it take to get over?
About an hour, not quite an hour.
Did they have any music on the boat, dancing on the boat?
Sometimes the night cruise, they'd have they'd go slower and they'd play music playing on the deck. Some people would get up and dance. And everybody else would sit around on the railings and look like I'm doing now and watch. I think we went over a couple times on the boat ourselves, but no. We used to go with my car when we went. That's it. I've got the Canadiana Ballard from the ship. I have it in my office in Grand Island.
How did you get that?
I got instrumental with Harvey Halsworth, who was the last captain of the Canadiana. And they were going to scrap it. He brought it to Fort Colborne in Canada to cut it up for scrap and send it to Hamilton to the steel mill. And Harvey got involved with Mel Rupp and a few other people and started raising funds and to reclaim it from the scrapyard. So it was successful, and I made arrangements for Riso, and we moved most of the components here. The hull had rotted away pretty good, but the engines, the steam engines. So I brought the steam engines back. I got a whole brochure of color photos Harvey took. Then we brought it to the Maritime Museum. They were going to use it there, but then that fell through. So we gave it to the Steam Museum. in Alexander, New York, just near Darien Lake. And then the pilot house we brought to Outer Harbor, where the Maritime Museum was. And a few years passed and it started deteriorating, so we cleaned it up and we took the rest of the remnants, the paddle, the big steam. And basically that's it. We used to go out to Eddie Bart's cabin out to the country, and we'd have cookouts. Horseback riding on Sunday over in DePue. They had a ice cream shop and pony rides, Niagara Falls pony rides. We'd go out to my uncle's at the farm and pick cherries. And we always made sure we tried to make mess. And we'd go out on Delaware Avenue for breakfast.
Who were your closest friends?
My closest childhood friend was Joe Murata. He's Rose Murata's nephew. They lived next door. Joe was my best friend, and he had, we used to go out to the old locks, like Lockport had on Perry Boulevard. The 190 there, between the front park and the west side was locks. There was all manufacturing in there. And we used to go out with rubble filled over the years. And we'd have cookouts, we'd get potatoes, and camp outs, digging forts and playing. I was his best man at his wedding. Joe had some limitations because he was kind of afflicted with cerebral palsy. When we used to play ball in the street, we'd choose up sides. I'd always choose Joe first. And he'd always refuse. He said, Jordan, I can't play too good. You won't win. He's a very humble guy. And then Frank Gizzle was next, in the next door. We were cousins and we chummed around together. But he was the baby of their family, so he got doted on. They bought him a bicycle. I never had a bicycle. He gave me a ride on his bicycle when he first got it. I was riding side on the bar, and he fell and broke his leg. And Lena and all his sisters come over looking for me to beat Georgie up because I broke his leg. I was just riding with him. I didn't do nothing. And then there was Sam Taravella, who was my other good friend. Even those that weren't really practicing their faith, living their faith as well, would all still go to Mass. And the social gatherings were Mass. Skating was done in the hall. Roller skating, we'd gather for roller skating. Gather for plays. So they played everything. They were a central part of our growing up was our faith. A friend is a friend for life. You didn't have contact with him for many, many times, many years. When you saw him, it was like you never missed a day.
How did technology changes affect daily life?
We used to have a cell phone that was like a suitcase. We carried a suitcase around, and that cell phone had a regular receiver on it. Hello.
And what about before that?
You used to just stop at the corner telephone booth to make a call. Two-way radios we got in 1965. KLQ 640 was our base call letters. KL 5394 was our mobile numbers. When you called from a mobile, you had to identify yourself.
Tell them about your tower on Virginia.
We were renting tower space from FMC Communications. Brighton and Colvin. We were renting space. So they had a radio repeater there. We put up our own tower because you get more range. I erected a tower. We closed off Virginia Street on a Saturday morning.
What do you remember about the civil rights movement?
We were working on Ellicott Street project where the old emergency hospital was. And we were bringing the sewers in. The blacks were occupying the towers and they were shooting at us. So the guys who were working there, we put on our loaders, the steel plates, the road plates, and you could hear them pinging off the road plates while the guys were working.
What was it like experiencing the moon landing in 1969?
Experiencing it was frightening. I was scared for the men. I wanted them to come home safely to their families, and I didn't quite understand any of it.
Our family was visiting my mother and father in Sweet Home. I had to pick up a check from DeAndrea Concrete. So my dad rode up with me. I drove. They were landing on the moon while my father and I had the radio on. So I listened. One of the last things I listened to with my dad was the moon landing. After it landed, I went in the house, got my check from John DeAndrea, and that was it. So I remember distinctly when they landed on the moon, I got my check.
How did the Vietnam War impact your perspective?
In Vietnam, we had to get out and vacate the country. They defeated us, technically, so defeated them. So our perspective was that America wasn't that mightyful. My friends, Paulie Stroney, come back with a lot of baggage. They were getting even with the Viet Cong, who would set booby traps for them when they beheaded him and they were playing soccer with his head. I was pen pals with 3 or 4 guys that were over there. I tried to enlist, I wanted to go, but they wouldn't take me. Said, "John, you're deferred because you have 2 children."
What about the assassination of JFK?
Our 5th anniversary, we went to Canandaigua, stayed at a hotel there.
Remember what you were doing at 9/11?
Yeah, we were grouting the Erie Canal in Gasport, New York. They called me on the 2-way radio and said, "You got to turn the radio on or attack the towers."
And then what about your brother? When did you hear about your brother?
Same day.
Same day you heard about his brother getting in an accident in Italy. And when did you go to the airport?
The next morning. I called Maria Aquino, and she knew the vice consulate in St. Catharines. So she made arrangements that I go see. It was a duress, like you could bump people because you had an emergency situation. I went to see the vice consul, and he okayed it. He gave me the tickets, the permission to go, and I was the last person on the flight. So as soon as we left the airspace, I was stepping all over people because all the United States flights were diverted to Toronto. The world today is rudderless. Quite frankly, it's a 5-letter word. It sucks. In years past, your values, where you came from, what you did, all help you to steer the boat the right way, to do the right thing. Now it's all over the